Hello everyone, and welcome to this overview of how SSP coordinators can enter their interim recommendations into PMCTrack, which will help to track and communicate these important recommendations, as well as improve the accuracy of the recommendation outcomes that PMCTrack calculates. For this training video, we will be focusing on how to enter and distribute interim recommendations to your IRs. After you prepare and distribute a breeding and transfer plan with the PMC, additional needs may come up for your population as animals die, are born, or as your facility's needs change that may require you to issue interim recommendations. You now have the opportunity to use PMCTrack to more formally track and communicate these recommendations. Using PMCTrack for your interim recommendations means that all of your recommendations from the original breeding and transfer plan and the ones created in the interim are stored in one location. In addition, this will help with communication because after you enter your recommendations, the system will email all IRs involved so that they are aware of the new recommendation. And most importantly, these recommendations will be used to calculate your outcomes, which serve as the basis for your PMCTrack outcome surveys, and means you'll have more accurate survey results and graphs. You can add interim recommendations after your breeding and transfer plan has been distributed and up until we calculate outcomes for your program and preparation for your next planning meeting. You can create these recommendations in your PMCTrack account under your SSP Coordinator dashboard. Under the Program Planning Status for your SSP, you will see a link called Add Interim Recommendations. You will see this link on your dashboard regardless where you are in the planning process, and it will always be under the Program Planning Status section. After you click on the link, it will open a table with your recommendations for that SSP. At the top of the table are brief instructions to guide you through the process. You can use the table to update original recommendations for individual animals, and you can add new animals to the table and give them recommendations. To search for recommendations to edit, you can sort the columns by clicking on them. And you can use the search bar to search for specific individuals. And then clear the search bar to see the whole table. Now, to create interim recommendations for an existing animal, click Add under the Interim Rec column. This will allow you to edit the existing recommendation from the breeding and transfer plan. The effective date will update to today's date so you and your IRs know when the recommendation was put into place. Once you are done editing the recommendation, you click Validate so the system can check for any errors. If there are errors, you will see messages indicating what needs to be corrected. And once all of the errors are fixed, then the recommendations can be submitted. Now that we've gone over the general process, let's look at it in more detail. You can change the transfer rec column to either Hold, Send To, or Other. When you change the rec to Hold, the destination will automatically change to the starting destination. If you try to change it to another facility, you will receive an error message when you try to validate the recommendation. And that's because for a Hold rec, the starting and destination facilities should be the same. When you select Send To, you must select a different facility from the starting facility. And finally, if you select Other, you have the option to select TBD or To Be Determined. You can change the breeding rec column to either breed with, do not breed, other, or see mate or X. When you select do not breed, other, or see mate or X, remember that you cannot include any individuals in the with column. When you select breed with, make sure to include all appropriate opposite sex mates in the with column. And then make sure those mates also have corresponding breed with recommendations in the table. But as a helpful reminder, after you validate, the system will prompt you to verify that your recommendations are correct. So as you can see here, I gave a breed with recommendation to 1198 for breed with 950. The system is giving me messages to let me know that I need to give 950 a breed with recommendation with 1198. Then finally, we recommend that you include a note pertaining to the new interim recommendation with any additional information that you want to communicate to those involved. This can provide important context for why the recommendation was necessary and will be visible in the email that goes out and in the reports, so a clear explanation is important and helpful. Now, let's say this recommendation was already communicated to those involved, but you want the recommendation to be saved in PMCTrack, but not sent out to your IRs. Then what you can do is backdate the effective date by a month or more. This way, the recommendation is saved in PMCTrack, but no emails are sent. Now, let's talk about adding new animals to the table. For example, let's say that the breeding and transfer plan is published, and new animals give birth, and you need to give these new offspring recommendations. You can do so by clicking on Add an Animal at the bottom. A blank row will appear at the top, and you can add the stubbook ID number, starting facility, sex, age, transfer rec, destination facility, breeding rec, any with and any potential mates if necessary, and then a note for those participating in the recommendation. The effective date will automatically be set to the current date. Once you have completed the recommendation, then click Validate so the system can verify that everything is correct. Before you can save your recommendation, you must first make sure that you do not have any error messages associated with the recommendations you just created. If you do, then the Save/Send email to IRs button will be grayed out, as you can see on screen. To view all of your potential error messages, just type in the word error in the search bar. The results will yield all of your recommendations that have messages that could be preventing you from saving and sending your recommendations. Once all of your error messages are fixed, then this button will turn green. So as you can see here, we have that recommendation I just created for 1198 for a breed with rec with 950. The system wants me to add a breed with recommendation to 950 with 1198. And remember to include a note as well. Now that I've fixed all of my error messages, the Save/Send button to IRs is now green. If you decide you don't want to keep the recommendations you just created, then you can click Cancel, and all of your newly created recommendations will be deleted. Once all of your recommendations have been validated and corrected, then your rec type column will change. So if you look here, for all of your recommendations that have been validated and corrected, they now say pending. So as you can see, for 1198, it says pending, and then for 950, it says pending. And then we have new ID, but this is for the animal that I added to the table. If you look here, you see some rec types say BTP, which stands for Breeding and Transfer Plan. So these are the recs that are from the original Breeding and Transfer Plan. And then we have two recs that are colored, that have a different color, and they also say INT. These stand for Interim Recommendation. So after you save and send the email to your IRs, then the recommendations that say pending then switch to INT. So then you know, if you go back to look at the table, you can tell which recommendations are from the original Breeding and Transfer Plan and which ones were created during the interim. After you click on the Save/Send Email to IRs button, then your recommendations are saved in PMCTrack and viewable in this recommendations table on your dashboard and in the reports. Clicking this button also sends an email to all of those involved in the recommendation, and you will be CC'd on that email. Those involved with the recommendation include your IRs at your starting and destination facility, your population biologist, and your tag chair. Remember, if you've already communicated these recommendations or issued them in the past, then you can backdate that effective date so those recs are saved but no emails are sent. Now, let's look at a couple reports so we can see the new changes from the interim recs. We will be looking at a different SSP that has already had their interim recs saved and sent, and the outcomes have already been calculated. The Recommendation Outcomes Detail Report will show you which rec is from the BTP, or Breeding and Transfer Plan, and which one is from the Interim, or INT. If you look at the column rec type, you see here it lists where the recommendation is from. The ones that say BTP are from the Breeding and Transfer Plan, and the ones that say INT-SC were recommendations created in the interim by the SSP coordinator. You can also see the date that the recommendation was created by viewing the final plan says interim rec date, and it'll show you the date that the rec was created. And the same for the outcome survey report. You can sort the report to see your interim recs by looking again at the rec type column. As you can see here, here's a few of the ones from the Breeding and Transfer Plan, and here are recommendations from the interim. Note that you'll only see interim recommendations in these reports after we've calculated outcomes with them. If you want to view the recommendations before we calculate outcomes, then you can do so by looking at that Add Interim Recommendations link on your SSP Coordinator dashboard. This link right here. A couple features to point out is that at the top right, there's a help icon, and if you click on it, it will give you more in-depth instructions and a link to this training video. In addition, if you click on this button right here, this will actually export your recommendations table. So if you would like to keep it for your records, you can do so by exporting the table. So that's it for this overview of how PMCTrack's interim recommendations can improve the management of your SSP. We hope this tool will improve communication between you and your IRs, ensure all of your recommendations from both the Breeding and Transfer Plan and the interim are easily documented and stored in a central location, and hopefully produce more accurate outcomes. If you have any questions, then please email us at pmctrack@lpzoo.org. Thank you so much for taking the time to view this training video. Goodbye.